Have you ever noticed how some people seem to possess an almost supernatural ability to shift the energy in a room without saying a single word? They don't need to raise their voices. They don't plead, argue, or demand. They simply step away. And suddenly, everything changes. That's not luck. And it's definitely not magic. It's inner mastery. And today, you're going to learn how to awaken this hidden power within you. You'll discover how to reclaim your energy, set unshakable boundaries, and become the person you were always meant to be. Through the lens of Carl Jung's profound psychological insights. Now imagine, just for a moment, what it would be like to stop reacting immediately to everything. Imagine choosing silence instead of automatic replies, choosing conscious withdrawal over emotional outbursts. What do you think would happen? Let me tell you exactly what would unfold. The world around you would begin to unravel, because people have learned to control you through your reactions, through your predictability. Your emotional responses have become like buttons they can push to get what they want. But the moment you consciously choose to remove yourself from the emotional battlefield, the entire game changes. Suddenly, those who thought they understood you are left confused because they realize something uncomfortable. They never truly knew you at all. Carl Jung once said something that can completely shift your perspective. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Pause and reflect on that. When you become unavailable, when you stop reacting, who gets anxious? Who tries to poke and provoke you just to elicit some response? That reveals more about them than it does about you. And more importantly, it uncovers just how much of your life has been subtly manipulated without your conscious awareness. The first profound truth you need to understand is this: your excessive availability is not a virtue. It's an invisible prison, a mental cage that keeps you exhausted, drained, and under control. From childhood, you've been conditioned to always be present, to answer quickly, to please, to say yes, even when every fiber of your being wanted to scream no. You've been taught that your value comes from how accessible you are to others. But here's a truth no one may have dared to tell you this clearly. Constant availability makes you predictable, and anything predictable eventually becomes a tool, a utility. People start using you like an emotional emergency button, pressing it when they need attention, comfort, or validation. And once they get what they want, they set you aside until the next emotional crisis. Do you recognize this cycle in your own life? Is there someone who only reaches out when they need something from you? Take a moment and really sit with that thought. Think of the person who immediately popped into your mind just now. Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted, loved, and acknowledged by society. And it is precisely this mask that keeps you overly available. You say, "I'm fine," while silently suffocating. You respond to messages instantly, even when you're running on empty. You explain yourself, justify your choices, and defend your feelings, as if you owe the world an explanation for simply existing. But here's the brutal truth. The more you place yourself at the center of other people's stages, the more you vanish from your own. Being constantly available is a subtle form of self-abandonment. It's a hidden plea for approval, a desperate strategy to avoid rejection, an unconscious attempt to control how others perceive you. So here's your first transformative exercise. For the next 3 days, before you reply to any message, ask yourself this question: am I answering from my center or from my need to please? If the answer is the latter, Wait 1 full hour before responding. During that hour, observe what rises inside you. The discomfort, the anxiety, the guilt, let it all surface. Because the people who demand your constant availability don't actually want you. They want the emotional services you provide. Validation, distraction, comfort, companionship. But when you begin to shift, when you start setting limits, when you no longer react the way they expect, they get agitated. They call you distant, cold, strange. Are you ready to be misunderstood in exchange for reclaiming your freedom? Because that is the price you'll have to pay, and it's a price worth every ounce of discomfort. This leads us to the second revolutionary truth. Your psychic energy is limited, and every impulsive reaction is draining it, whether you realize it or not. Carl Jung did not view the human psyche as a machine that simply reacts to stimuli without consequences. For him, the mind is an energy system. Every thought, every emotion, every action consumes a part of your vital energy. So here's the question that could change your life forever. Are you choosing where your energy goes, or are you letting the world choose for you? Every time you react without thinking, you're wasting psychic energy. When you defend yourself against baseless criticism, when you respond to provocation just to prove a point, when you argue over things that don't matter, or try to gain the approval of people who don't see your worth, you are draining your inner power on things that don't nourish you. Jung was crystal clear about this. What you resist persists. The more you react, the more entangled you become. The more you try to fix, explain, or prove, the deeper you sink into emotional dependency. But there is another way. You can begin to consciously redirect your energy. Choose your battles. Prioritize your peace. Reclaim your presence. You don't need to be available to everyone. You don't need to respond to everything. You don't need to explain yourself to people who have already decided not to understand you. The more you protect your energy, the more you will realize how much of your life was spent trying to keep others comfortable while leaving yourself behind. Carl Jung believed that wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of the self, but by integrating it. And this includes your right to say no, your right to be silent, your right to walk away. So, as you move forward, carry this with you. Your silence is not weakness, it is strategy. Your withdrawal is not surrender, it is self-respect. And your refusal to react is not passivity, it is power. And that power is yours to reclaim, starting now. People who live in a state of emotional exhaustion are not weak, they are simply misdirected. The truth is, emotional fatigue is rarely a result of physical limitations. It's almost always a sign that your energy has been invested in the wrong places, people, and thoughts. Think about how many hours you've spent lying awake at night, replaying conversations that didn't go the way you wanted. How many times have you chewed over every word, wondering what you should have said differently? How many times have you tried to decode someone else's behavior? Why they mistreated you, ignored you, or acted cold? Pause for a moment. Think back over the last 7 days. How many hours have you spent trapped in those spirals? How much of your precious life force has been consumed by internal conflicts that could have been resolved, not through confrontation, but with silence? Every time you relive a moment of hurt, every time you feed that loop of, "I should have said," or "Why did they do this to me?" you're draining energy that will never return. This is energy leakage, silent, invisible, and dangerous. You are keeping ghosts alive that should have been buried long ago. You're fueling dynamics that only persist because you continue to react to reply, to care beyond what is healthy. Psychic energy, as Carl Jung taught, is like a field of force. When it is conserved and directed inward with intention, it creates something powerful. Presence. Real presence. That magnetic aura people feel when someone walks into a room and commands respect without uttering a single word. But when your energy is scattered, when it's wasted on arguments, overthinking, guilt, or trying to please those who only take, you begin to disappear. You become invisible to yourself. You become reactive instead of intentional, fragile instead of grounded. And the harsh truth is that the world, more often than not, has no mercy for those who give themselves away too easily. Here's your second exercise. For an entire week, carry an energy journal. Every time you feel your emotional or mental energy draining, pause and write it down. What triggered it? Who was involved? What thought or situation sparked that internal fatigue? At the end of the week, you will clearly see who or what your top 5 energy thieves are. And these are not just petty annoyances. These are patterns. These are the exact places where your healing and transformation must begin. Carl Jung emphasized that when you learn to hold on to your energy, you begin to break the projections others place upon you. You begin to dissolve the roles they assigned you without consent. And that's deeply unsettling, not just for you, but for them. Because now we step into the realm of unconscious manipulation. The kind that doesn't shout, the kind that doesn't demand, the kind that simply expects because you've always complied. Here's the third revelation, one that, if truly understood, will change your perspective forever. You are being manipulated in ways that you don't even realize. Your emotional availability, the fact that you care so deeply, that you want to help, that you want to understand, is the very weapon used against you. You believe you're in control. You think your reactions are conscious choices. But the truth runs much deeper and darker. Most of your emotional responses are not conscious. They are programmed. And those who understand this, those who observe how you operate, can control you without ever raising their voice. They don't need to beg or argue or intimidate. All they have to do is press the right emotional button, and you respond like a machine. Carl Jung called this projection, the psychological mechanism where individuals cast the parts of themselves they cannot accept onto others. But there's a hidden side of this phenomenon that many overlook. While others project onto you, you slowly become the container of those projections. You carry them. You embody them. The more emotionally open you are, the more likely you are to become a blank canvas for people to paint their false narratives on. Think of that friend who only calls when they're in crisis. That partner who needs rescuing over and over. That person who praises you only when you serve their needs. Close your eyes. Picture them. This is not a coincidence. They're not interacting with you. They're interacting with their idea of you, the role you've silently agreed to play. And why do you accept this role? Because you're afraid. Afraid to disappoint. Afraid of not being enough. Afraid of being abandoned. The most effective manipulation doesn't happen in arguments. It happens in the quiet corners of guilt. It happens when you feel like you owe someone your attention, your time, your care, even when it tears you apart inside. And here lies one of Jung's most powerful insights. The manipulator doesn't need to exert direct control. They don't need to dominate you outright. They only need you to continue reacting in the same predictable ways. The moment you stop reacting, the entire illusion begins to crumble. the game ends. So here's your third exercise, and it may be the most uncomfortable of all. Over the next 5 days, identify the one person in your life who drains you the most emotionally. Pay close attention. Don't avoid the truth. And once you've identified them, respond to everything they say with only 2 phrases: "I understand," or "I'll think about it." Nothing more. No explanations. No justifications. No emotional engagement. Now observe. Watch how they change. See how they adjust. This simple experiment will show you just how much of their power over you was built on your emotional reactions. You will begin to understand the subtle yet powerful grip they held, not through force, but through your own unconscious willingness to comply. And once you see it clearly, you can never unsee it. That is the beginning of freedom. When you begin to say no, to answer with silence, to walk away instead of justifying yourself, their projections start to collapse. The mask they placed on you falls off, leaving people confused because they no longer know who you are. Your unavailability becomes a threat. It forces others to face their own emptiness. The silence you offer exposes the internal noise they've been avoiding. Are you ready to be accused of changing the moment you finally choose to protect yourself? If this message is resonating with you, like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear this truth. Your support helps me keep creating content that transforms real lives, because it's exactly when you retreat that a new kind of power is born. And that's what we'll talk about next. The fourth transformation you'll experience is the discovery of the power manipulators fear the most: conscious silence. The modern world is loud. Everyone wants to be heard, to respond instantly, to win meaningless arguments and prove their point, even if it costs them their peace. But there is a power that few have heard of, and even fewer have mastered. The power of silence. Not the silence of passivity or cowardice, but of consciousness. Strategic, brutally clear silence. The kind of silence that isn't absence, it's amplified presence. Jung didn't see silence as a void, but as a fertile ground for inner transformation. When you stop reacting, you start observing. And by observing, you begin to see patterns you never noticed before: emotional loops, manipulative games, cycles of self-sabotage. Silence allows for clarity, and clarity is dangerous to those who live to control you. Have you noticed how some people panic when you don't reply, when you don't explain yourself, when you just disappear? It's not because they miss you, it's because your silence steals their control of the narrative. When you speak, you're still playing the game. But when you go quiet, you change the rules, and that unsettles anyone who thrives on your reaction. Carl Jung said something profound. Individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, requires this distance, because only in silence can you hear yourself without the world's interference. True silence isn't the absence of voice. It's mastery over your own energy. It's the refusal to be pulled into someone else's emotional storm. It's the conscious choice to not engage in battles that aren't worth your exhaustion. But don't be fooled. Silence comes with a cost. It will distance you from people who only valued you for the role you played. It will make you incomprehensible to those who only saw you through their own projections. It will make you appear cold, distant, arrogant. But all of that is just a reaction from people who never cared to face your depth, only your usefulness. Your fourth exercise is powerful. During a tense conversation this week, instead of explaining yourself or defending your position, simply say, "I understand your point of view," and remain silent. Say nothing more. Observe how that person reacts and how you feel. This practice reveals the transformative power of conscious silence. The more you mature, the more selective you become with your words, because you realize that every sentence is an energetic investment, and not everyone deserves access to your truth. Sometimes silence isn't withdrawal, it's sovereignty. It's the language of those who no longer need to prove anything to anyone. Silence is uncomfortable because it forces the other to deal with their own thoughts, their own inner noise, and that discomfort reveals more about them than any argument you could ever offer. Are you ready to use silence as your tool for transformation? Can you handle the discomfort of not constantly explaining yourself? But the most powerful silence is not the one that disturbs others. It's the one that rebuilds you from within. And that's what we'll talk about next. The fifth and final revelation is the most transformative, the emotional discipline that allows you to be reborn through silence. Understanding all of this intellectually is useless if, in practice, you continue saying yes when you want to say no, replying to messages that annoy you, engaging in meaningless conversations, or staying in relationships that persist out of inertia. Awareness without action is just another form of self-deception. True transformation begins the moment you decide, firmly, to become selective. And that requires unshakable emotional discipline. Conscious unavailability is not about being cold, arrogant, or distant. It's about no longer being accessible to anyone, at any time, for any reason. It's about taking ownership of your energy, your time, your peace. And this begins with small, revolutionary actions, not replying immediately, breathing before reacting, walking away from a fight before you're pulled into chaos, turning off your phone without guilt, saying, "Not today," saying, "I'm not interested," saying, "I won't get involved." But here's the most important part, something Jung understood deeply. You don't need to justify your absence. You don't need to explain your silence. You owe nothing to anyone but yourself. And for many people, that's unforgivable. Because when you stop explaining yourself, you take away their power to trap you in an emotional script where you're always the helpful, understanding, available one. Carl Jung understood that every process of individuation involves isolation. Not depressive isolation, but sacred solitude, a period of inner retreat where you relearn to hear your own voice without the world's interference. Your fifth and final exercise is the most demanding. Choose a day this week to practice total unavailability. Don't reply to non-urgent messages. Don't explain your absence. Don't justify your need for space. Just be unreachable for 24 hours. Watch what happens within you and around you. Want to know a foolproof indicator of your evolution? Notice who begins to distance themselves when you become more reserved. Notice who tries to provoke you when you stop reacting. Notice who accuses you of changing when you finally start protecting yourself. These are not signs that you're wrong. They're proof that you've begun to break free. Being unavailable is uncomfortable at first. You'll feel guilty. You might think you're being selfish. You might hear that you're being too cold, too distant, even cruel. But none of that is true. What you're experiencing is not selfishness. It's a sacred act of self-preservation. It's the first step in a long, often painful, but deeply liberating journey. The process of deconstruction. You've spent most of your life being conditioned to minimize yourself, to make others comfortable at your expense, to say yes when your soul screamed no. You were taught to believe that love means sacrifice, that kindness means compliance, that your worth depends on how useful or agreeable you are to others. So naturally, the moment you start choosing yourself, discomfort arises, not just within you, but also in those who benefited from your emotional availability. This is the invisible weight you've carried, the unspoken expectation to be always present, always agreeable, always giving. But now, you're waking up. You're recognizing that your constant availability was not kindness, it was self-erasure. And breaking free from this pattern is not just healing, it's revolutionary. The conscious decision to become unavailable is not rejection, it is resurrection. When you say no to the world, you're finally saying yes to yourself. When you walk away from a toxic environment, you're making a sacred declaration. Your peace is no longer up for negotiation. And when you stop explaining yourself to people who never truly saw you, something extraordinary happens. Respect begins to form. Maybe not from the masses, but from those few who truly value authenticity. Still, be warned. Not everyone will be ready for this version of you. Your absence, your silence, your refusal to play the old emotional roles will trigger discomfort in others. Why? Because it forces them to look at themselves. It reveals just how much they depended on your emotional chaos to feel in control of their own lives. They needed you to be the fixer, the pleaser, the one who bends. And when you no longer play that part, the illusion shatters, and with the shattering comes pain, the rupture, a deep, aching loneliness, the haunting sense that you're losing something important, when in truth, you're finally releasing what was never meant to stay. Then the silence arrives, not the peaceful kind at first. It's raw, loud, disorienting. A silence that echoes through your body and makes you question everything. Did I make the right choice? Am I being too harsh? Am I pushing away the people who cared about me? These doubts will rise like smoke. But if you sit with them long enough, something begins to shift. The silence stops screaming and starts soothing. It begins to cleanse the noise in your mind. Slowly, the fog clears. You begin to see what you couldn't see before. And then solitude enters. Not the kind born from abandonment, but the kind born from presence. Your own presence. The sacred solitude of someone who no longer betrays themselves just to keep others close. And in this space, something extraordinary unfolds. Where there was once confusion, now lives clarity. Where anxiety once thrived, now rests a deep, grounded calm. Where desperate need once consumed you, now a quiet power begins to emerge. The power of being whole within yourself. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming who you truly are. And to do that, you must separate from the collective. You must step away from the persona, the mask you've worn for others. You must walk alone, even if only for a while. That's exactly what you're doing when you become unavailable. You are not escaping the world. You are returning to yourself. You stop being a reactor and become a creator. You no longer allow external circumstances to shape you. You begin shaping reality from within. And the people who can't handle your absence, they were never really there for you. They were there for the role you played. They wanted your compliance, not your truth. And when you refuse to fit their story, they don't know what to do with you. But that's not your problem anymore. That is your liberation. You will lose people. You will walk away from places that once felt like home. But in doing so, you will find yourself. You will reconnect with your essence. You will be misunderstood. But finally, you'll begin to be respected. Because when you're no longer available for anything and everything, You become rare, valuable, magnetic, unforgettable. And don't be fooled. This is a rebirth, a beginning, the start of a life where you're no longer available for emotional crumbs, for manipulative games, for hollow connections dressed as affection. You begin to live a life that aligns with your truth, your peace, your deepest values. From this point forward, you only accept what honors your integrity, what resonates with your soul, what reflects your worth. This transformation we're exploring is not just psychological, it's a personal revolution. And like all revolutions, it begins with a single act, choosing yourself. Even if it means being alone for a while, even if it means standing in your own silence while the world questions your decision. Because now you know, over-availability is a prison, emotional reactivity is a trap, and your psychic energy is sacred. It must be protected, not wasted. You are beginning to understand that silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. That emotional discipline is not coldness, it's clarity. And that the price of self-respect is sometimes being misunderstood, rejected, even hated. But it is a price worth paying. Jung taught us that true self-love begins when you choose yourself, even if it means walking alone, even if others turn away, because that's when you stop living for others and start living from your center. So I ask you now, are you ready to pay the price of becoming your true self? Are you ready to exchange external validation for internal peace? If something deep inside you was stirred by these words, if you recognize the patterns, the old roles, the cycles that you're ready to break, leave a comment below that says, "I choose my peace." Let's see how many of you are truly ready for this kind of transformation. And if this message opened your eyes, if it shifted something in your heart, subscribe to this channel and turn on the notifications. Share this video with someone you know is ready to awaken, because the journey has only just begun. Imagine for a moment that within you lies a secret, a hidden power capable not only of lifting your self-esteem to levels you never thought possible, but also of completely transforming the way you attract people, experiences, and opportunities into your life. This is not a shallow trick or an empty promise, like so many that are spread across the world. It is a profound discovery that comes from one of the greatest minds in psychology, Carl Jung. He devoted his life to exploring the darkest and most mysterious corners of the human soul. And what he found changes everything we thought we knew about ourselves. Today, I want to guide you through this journey, a journey that will not only help you feel more confident and valuable, but also help you attract what you truly deserve: authentic relationships, inner fulfillment, and a life that resonates with the essence of who you really are. Jung believed that within each of us exists an entire universe, an inner world filled with infinite possibilities, but also with shadows we've been conditioned to ignore. Have you ever felt as though something inside you was holding you back? Perhaps it's that subtle voice that whispers you're not enough, that you don't deserve more than what you have, or that constant fear of being rejected. Jung would say, this is not a flaw, nor an accident. It is your unconscious speaking to you. It communicates through emotions, through intuitions, and even through the people who cross your path. This unconscious is not an enemy. It is a guide, a teacher urging you to awaken and reclaim the value that has always been inside you. Think about your life for a second. How many times have you found yourself in a situation where everything seemed fine on the surface, yet deep down you felt something was off? Maybe it was a relationship that looked perfect to everyone else, but left you feeling empty. or a job that others admired yet made you feel trapped. Jung taught us that those inner sensations are not meaningless noise. They are messages from the unconscious, signals attempting to steer you towards something better. He called this the process of individuation, the journey of becoming your true self, a self that does not bend under external expectations nor settle for less than it deserves. But here is the first great secret Jung revealed for elevating your self-esteem and attracting what you deserve. You must first look inward, not outward. We live in a world that constantly bombards us with images and ideas of what we should be: more successful, more attractive, wealthier. And in our desperate attempt to fit in, we lose connection with our true essence. Jung explained that when you lose that connection with yourself, your self-esteem collapses because you are living a life that does not belong to you. It's like wearing a costume that doesn't fit, and with each passing day, you feel more uncomfortable in your own skin. So, how do we begin to change this? Jung gave us a powerful clue. The unconscious does not speak in clear words the way we do now. It speaks in symbols, dreams, emotions, and at times through that inexplicable gut feeling when something simply doesn't feel right. Have you ever met someone, and even without a logical reason, something inside urged you to keep your distance? That is your intuition, a sacred tool, Jung believed. Listening to it is not a luxury. It is essential if you want to build strong self-esteem and attract relationships and experiences that uplift you instead of drain you. Let's talk about self-esteem for a moment. For Jung, it was never about just feeling good about yourself in a shallow or cosmetic sense. True self-esteem is about recognizing your intrinsic value, a value that does not depend on the opinions of others or the number of likes you get on a photo. He believed that real self-esteem is born when you reconcile with every part of yourself, even the ones you dislike. And here enters one of his most fascinating yet most challenging concepts: the shadow. The shadow, according to Jung, is that part of us we hide from the world. It holds our flaws, fears, insecurities, and even desires we dare not admit, not even to ourselves. Perhaps it's the anger you repress because it's not right to be angry, or the envy that burns when you see someone achieving what you wish for yourself. Most of us spend our lives running away from the shadow, pretending it doesn't exist. But Jung gave us a crucial warning. The more you ignore it, the more power it gains over you. And this power manifests in ways you've likely already experienced. Have you ever noticed how certain people seem to push your buttons for no apparent reason? Or how you find yourself repeating the same painful patterns in your relationships as though trapped in an endless cycle? Jung would say, that is not bad luck. It is your shadow projecting itself outward. Those people who irritate you are not the real problem. They are mirrors reflecting something inside of you that you haven't yet faced. And here is where the magic begins. When you start integrating your shadow, when you accept those darker aspects of yourself, your self-esteem grows because you are no longer at war with yourself. You become whole, authentic, and therefore magnetic. Imagine walking through life, carrying a backpack full of stones, each stone representing something you deny about yourself. A fear, a guilt, a belief that you're not enough. That backpack weighs you down, drains you, and makes you attract relationships and situations that reinforce that burden. Now imagine opening that backpack and looking inside. It isn't comfortable, of course not. But by recognizing those stones and saying, yes, this is also a part of me, you begin to release them, one by one. And with every stone you drop, you feel lighter, more confident, and more worthy of the good life has to offer. Jung taught us that self-esteem is not built by seeking external validation, but by confronting what lies within. And when you do this inner work, something incredible happens. The external world begins to respond. This is not magic in the fairy tale sense. It is a principle Jung called synchronicity. He believed that when you align with your true self, the universe seems to conspire in your favor. The right people appear, opportunities open up, and suddenly you realize you are attracting not what you used to settle for, but what you truly deserve. Yet let's not deceive ourselves. This process requires courage. Jung spoke of choosing the road less traveled, the dark and unfamiliar path that forces you to face your deepest fears. Most people prefer to stay in the comfort zone, following what society dictates. But if you want to elevate your self-esteem and live a life worth living, you must dare to walk that difficult path. Because it is in that uncomfortable place, in that darkness, where you discover the light that has always been inside you. Think about your relationships. How many times have you allowed someone to make you feel small? How many times have you let your boundaries be crossed because you didn't want to cause conflict? Jung would say that every time you do this, you are sending a message to your unconscious. I am not worthy enough. And your unconscious listens. It responds by attracting more of the same. People who drain you, situations that exhaust you. But here lies the good news. You can change that message. When you start protecting your energy, when you decide not to settle and surround yourself only with those who respect and uplift you, you are telling your unconscious, I deserve more. And the universe begins to reflect that back. Perhaps right now, you are already thinking of someone in your life who makes you feel drained, insecure, or trapped. That awareness itself is the first step, because once you recognize it, you hold the power to change the story. Jung would invite you to reflect on what that person in front of you is truly showing about yourself. What part of your shadow is asking to be acknowledged? It is never about blaming others, but about using every experience as a mirror for your growth. Each interaction, each conflict, each emotion triggered by another person is, in reality, an opportunity to turn inward and discover something hidden within you. Because when you begin to grow, when you truly value yourself, you naturally stop tolerating what no longer serves you. And that decision is the very first step toward attracting what you genuinely deserve: love, respect, and abundance. Now that we've explored how the unconscious and the shadow, as Carl Jung explained, are essential keys to understanding who we really are, I want to take you a step further. Looking inside and recognizing those hidden parts is only the beginning. The real power lies in what you choose to do with what you discover. Imagine yourself standing in front of a mirror, but this is not an ordinary mirror. This one reveals everything: your fears, your doubts, your unhealed wounds, but also your inner strength, your radiant light, and your limitless potential. What would you do if you could see all of that at once? Jung would say that this is the moment transformation begins. Integration of the shadow is not easy. I'll admit that. It is an act of bravery, one that requires you to face what you would prefer to avoid. Perhaps it is that insecurity that makes you doubt your abilities, or that anger you suppress because you want to appear kind. Yet here is the twist Jung gifted us with. The parts of yourself you reject are not flaws. They are pure energy, waiting to be redirected. Imagine your anger. instead of being a source of shame, becoming the very fuel that drives you to set boundaries and defend your worth. Or picture your fear, rather than paralyzing you, transforming into a guide that points you toward what truly matters. When you begin to see your shadow not as your enemy, but as your teacher, your self-esteem doesn't just grow, it becomes indestructible. And why is this so important? Because your self-esteem is the foundation of everything you attract into your life. Jung believed that the external world is a reflection of your internal one, a concept he called projection. If, deep inside, you carry the belief that you are unworthy of love, respect, or success, you will continue attracting people and circumstances that confirm that belief. But when you change that inner narrative, when you decide that you are worthy of the best, the universe begins to reorganize itself around you. It is as though you give your unconscious a new instruction. I will only accept what elevates me. And believe me, your unconscious is always listening. Let's talk about relationships, because this is where Jung's secret becomes most evident. Have you ever been with someone who made you feel less than who you are? Maybe they never said it outright, but their actions left you with a constant sense of emptiness, as though you had to keep proving yourself to be enough. Jung would say that such a relationship is not a coincidence. It is a projection of something unresolved within you. Perhaps it is a part of your shadow that still believes you need others' approval to feel valuable. But here is the liberating truth. You don't need anyone to complete you. You are already whole. And when you truly integrate that truth, when you realize that your worth depends on no one else, you begin to attract people who see you for who you really are, not for who they want you to be. Think of this process like a deep cleaning of your life. Imagine opening a closet packed with old clothes. Some don't fit anymore, some are worn out, and some you don't even like, but you hold on to them just in case. Now apply that image to your relationships and life situations. How many times have you held on to people or experiences that diminish you, simply out of fear of the emptiness their absence might leave? Jung invites us to let go, not from a place of defeat, but from a place of empowerment. Because when you release what doesn't resonate with you, you create space for what does. And that space doesn't stay empty for long. It soon fills with people and experiences that reflect your new sense of self-worth. This is where another fascinating concept enters: synchronicity. Jung described it as those meaningful coincidences that feel too perfect to be random. Have you ever let go of something toxic, only to have an unexpected opportunity appear in your life? Or perhaps you met someone at the exact moment you needed them, as if the universe itself rewarded your courage. Jung explained that this isn't luck, it's the natural outcome of aligning with your authentic self. When you elevate your self-esteem and dare to live in truth, the outer world begins to synchronize with that energy. It is as though the universe whispers, "Finally, you are ready to receive what you deserve." But let me be honest, this path is not without challenges. There will be moments when you doubt yourself, moments when the fear of change makes you want to step back. Jung knew this well. He said, "There is no awakening of consciousness without pain." That pain may appear as difficult goodbyes, as uncomfortable truths, or as the release of beliefs you've carried for years. Yet that pain is not punishment, it is purification. Just like cleansing a wound, it hurts at first, but it is necessary for healing. And when healing comes, what remains is a stronger, clearer, more confident version of you. Now I want you to imagine your life as a garden. At this moment, there may be weeds growing, relationships that drain you, thoughts that limit you, habits that keep you stagnant. But you hold the power to remove those weeds and plant something new. Each time you choose to value yourself, each time you say no to what harms you and yes to what nurtures you, you plant seeds of self-esteem. With time, that garden flourishes. You attract people who water you with love and respect, opportunities that help you shine, and an inner peace that no external condition can take away. Jung also left us with a practical tool for this journey: reflection. He believed that self-knowledge is not something that happens magically. It requires time, attention, and honesty. So, I invite you to try this with me now. Think of a situation in your life that feels heavy. Maybe it's a relationship, a job, or even a dream you've abandoned. Ask yourself, what is this showing me about myself? What part of my shadow is asking to be seen? And what would happen if I dared to let go of what no longer serves me? You don't need to answer aloud. Just let these questions echo in your mind, because they are the beginning of something powerful. Often the signs from the unconscious don't arrive like thunder. They are subtle, like a spark of curiosity. Maybe you've felt the urge to explore something new, a hobby, a place, an idea. Jung would say that this is not coincidence. It is your unconscious opening a door to your authenticity. But to cross that door, you must trust yourself. You must believe that you deserve more than a mediocre life, more than relationships that suffocate you, more than dreams collecting dust in a drawer. And here is the climax of this secret. When you live authentically, when you allow yourself to be who you truly are, without masks or excuses, you become a magnet for everything you deserve. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming your fullest self. It isn't about being perfect, it's about being real. Because the people who are meant to be in your life don't want a false version of you. They want your light, your truth, your essence. And the opportunities destined for you don't arrive when you hide. They arrive when you dare to shine. So, what does this mean for you today? It means you have a choice. You can continue carrying that heavy backpack full of stones, tolerating what drains you, settling for less than you are worth. Or you can decide that enough is enough. You can begin to listen to your intuition, face your shadow, and build a self-esteem that doesn't just sustain you, but lifts you higher. And when you do, you will see how the universe responds. The right people will appear, the right doors will open, and you will realize that you always had the power to attract what you truly deserve. Before we close, I want you to reflect on this. What are you willing to release in order to make space for what you really want? What part of yourself have you been suppressing that deserves to be freed? Because Jung's secret is not just a theory. It is an invitation to live differently, to live a life where your self-worth is non-negotiable, where you only accept what honors you, and where every single day becomes a reflection of your truth. If this has resonated with you, I invite you to share this message with someone who needs it, someone who is ready to elevate their self-esteem and attract what they truly deserve. Leave a comment below and tell me, what are you ready to let go of today? What step will you take to align with your truth? Your words won't just inspire me. They will inspire this entire community that is growing alongside you. Subscribe if you haven't yet, activate the notification bell, and let's continue this journey together, because the world needs more authentic, courageous souls like you. Thank you for being here. Remember, the change begins with you. Have you ever felt like something inside you is screaming for change, but you don't know where to start? You're in a place filled with laughter and music. Everything seems perfect, and yet a voice inside whispers, "This isn't the place." Not because there's a visible problem, but because you no longer fit that version of yourself. Or maybe it's a relationship everyone considers ideal, where nothing is missing except the essentials. That silent feeling of emptiness, as if you're playing a role you no longer want to play. If any of this resonates with you, stay, because what you're feeling is much more than confusion. It's a calling. Carl Jung, one of the most influential thinkers in psychology, said that what isn't made conscious is experienced as destiny, and that destiny often manifests as dissatisfaction, anxiety, or a deep desire for something different. But what's really happening is that your unconscious is beginning to speak to you, not with words, but with sensations, intuitions, uncomfortable silences that you can no longer ignore. True self-esteem isn't born from external approval, achievements, or praise. It's born from encountering yourself. And that encounter begins when you dare to stop distracting yourself, pleasing yourself, and running away. When you decide to look inward and ask yourself, who am I beneath all this? Jung called it individuation, the process of becoming you. Not the image others expect, but your true essence, without masks. It's a path that requires courage, because it forces you to face parts of yourself that you've denied or hidden for years. But there, right there, lies your greatest power. This journey isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about embracing what was rejected, about listening to that inner voice that tells you you deserve more, not from ego, but from authenticity. Because every time you choose your truth over appearances, you come closer to who you truly are. So if you've been feeling out of place lately, if there's something inside you asking for change, don't keep it quiet. You are not broken. You are awakening. And that awakening, though uncomfortable, is the beginning of your transformation. Let's walk this path together, because when you stop looking outside for answers and start looking at yourself honestly, everything begins to align. Not because the world changes, but because you change. And from there, everything else begins to make sense. Have you ever felt a desire to be careful with someone, but ignored them because they seemed nice? That's your subconscious trying to guide you. According to Jung, when you follow that inner voice, you get closer to your authenticity. When you ignore it, you distance yourself from yourself. Your self-esteem doesn't grow through likes or external approval, but by aligning yourself with that inner voice that knows who you are. How many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? Like 32-year-old Laura, who remains in a job she hates because her family considers it stable, or 40-year-old Miguel, trapped in a toxic relationship for fear of failure. Both have disconnected from their essence, and this, little by little, damages their self-esteem. For Jung, this is no coincidence. It's the unconscious screaming to be heard. This unconscious stores your fears, desires, and unacknowledged truths. It doesn't speak with words, but with symbols, dreams, or physical sensations, like dreaming about running without moving forward, a sign that something in your life has you stuck. But listening isn't enough. You have to act. If, for example, you're in a friendship where you only give and never receive, and you feel a knot in your stomach when you see it. That discomfort is your shadow speaking. The shadow, another Jungian concept, represents the parts of you that you hide. Your anger, your unspoken boundaries, your need to say enough. This discomfort isn't punishment. It's an invitation to reconnect with yourself. Take a deep breath and think, is there someone in your life who makes you feel this way? Maybe it's a boss who always demands more than you can give, or a relative who criticizes everything you do. If you feel that inner yes, don't brush it off. Make a mental note of it, because I'm going to give you a powerful tip later to help you deal with that and take back your energy. And speaking of energy, Jung said that protecting it is essential to your self-worth. Every time you let someone drain it, you send a message to your unconscious mind. I'm not enough. But when you set boundaries, the message becomes, I respect myself. Isn't that powerful? Let's go deeper. Picture this. You're standing at a crossroads in your life. One path is easy. You stay in the same routines, around the same people, and nothing really changes. The other path is a mystery. It asks you to let go of something that no longer serves you, like a draining job or a relationship that feels heavy. Most people choose the easy road, but Jung believed real growth happens in the unknown. Why? Because that's where you face your shadow and find your strength. Think of Anna, a single mother. She left a toxic marriage, even though everyone said, stay for the kids. She was scared at first, but now she says she's never felt so free. Or think of Carlos, a man who quit his corporate job to start his small business. They both chose the dark path and found light. So, what does this have to do with your self-esteem? Everything. Carl Jung taught that when you dare to be yourself, without masks, your confidence rises from within. You don't need anyone to praise you, you feel it for yourself. But don't confuse this with being reckless. It's really about asking, what am I holding on to that's stealing my peace? What could I release to feel more like myself? If this hits home, I invite you to do something right now. Leave a comment below saying, I want to let go, and share what it is you no longer want to carry. It won't just set you free, it might inspire someone else in this community to do the same. Let's talk about relationships, because that's where we often lose our self-worth. Have you ever met someone, and at first, everything feels amazing, but over time, you start feeling like you're disappearing? Jung would say, that's your unconscious sending you signs. Picture Carla, a 28-year-old woman. She dated a charming guy, but he constantly made her feel like her dreams of being an artist were unrealistic. At first, Carla tried hard to fit in, but one day she looked at herself in the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back. Or think of Daniel, a 35-year-old man who gave up his passion for music because his partner kept saying it wouldn't pay the bills. In both cases, their self-esteem faded because they were abandoning who they really were. Here's a practical tool from Jung: conscious reflection. Take 5 minutes a day. Grab a notebook and write down, how do I feel when I'm with this person? Do they inspire me to be more myself? Or do I feel the need to hide? If the answer makes you uncomfortable, don't ignore it. Jung believed the unconscious uses those emotions to reveal deeper truths. And if you choose to let go of that relationship, it's not giving up, it's choosing yourself. When Paula left her boyfriend, she started painting again, and now she sells her artwork. Daniel picked up his guitar and plays at a bar on weekends. Their self-esteem didn't just recover, it skyrocketed. Let's pause for a second. Think of one relationship in your life, friendship, romance, or even work. Does it make you shine, or does it dim your light? If you'd like, share it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you and watch this community grow with your experiences. And if this message is stirring something inside you, give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. This isn't just a video, it's a movement for living in deeper connection with ourselves. Now, what happens if you don't face those signs? The shadow grows. Jung explained that the more you ignore those uncomfortable parts of yourself, like the anger you suppress or the change you crave, the more control they have over your life. They show up as self-sabotage. Maybe you've argued with someone and later realized you overreacted to something small. That might be your shadow lashing out because you hadn't dealt with it. Or maybe you avoid speaking up in meetings out of fear of being judged, then beat yourself up later. That's your self-worth calling out to be reclaimed. One more insight. Jung believed in projection. That means what you see in others, what annoys or fascinates you, is often a reflection of you. If someone drives you crazy, ask yourself, what are they showing me about myself that I don't want to see? For instance, if it frustrates you that your friend is always late, maybe it's because you also fear not being enough, and you're projecting that fear onto her. This isn't about blaming yourself, it's about setting yourself free. Once you understand your projections, you stop giving your power away and begin to claim it back. So, how do you begin to integrate your shadow and raise your self-esteem? Jung would say, look at it without fear. If you feel jealous because someone has something you want, don't punish yourself. Ask, what part of me is longing to be expressed? If being ignored makes you angry, don't explode or bottle it up. Write down how you feel and figure out how to set a boundary. That's real. That's practical. I've done this myself. There was a time when I got upset because a coworker took credit for something I created. Instead of staying quiet, I spoke up. And what I discovered was that I also needed to value myself more. My self-worth took a big step forward that day. We're wrapping up this first part, but before we do, a question. What shadow are you ready to face? Maybe it's the fear of saying no, or the guilt of wanting more for yourself. If you feel brave, share it in the comments. This is just the beginning. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into how your relationships shape your self-worth and what you can do to protect it. I'll see you there. If you've made it this far, it's because some part of you is ready to go deeper. And I'm glad we're on this journey together. We just talked about facing your shadow, the parts of you that you hide, but they can actually lift your self-esteem with less effort, just like Jung said. Now let's explore how the relationships in your life, from your partner to your boss, are shaping how you see yourself and how to guard your energy so you can shine the way you were meant to. Because believe me, the people you choose to keep close are mirrors of your inner world. And Jung had a lot to say about that. Think about it. Have you ever left a conversation feeling smaller than when you entered? Maybe it was your aunt's comment at dinner that made you question your choices, or your co-worker's criticism that left you thinking, I'm not good enough. Jung would say, those moments aren't random. They're reflections of something you already carry inside, magnified by those around you. He called it projection. We see in others what we haven't yet accepted in ourselves, and if you don't deal with it, your self-esteem pays the price. Let me give you a realistic example. Imagine Maria, a 34-year-old woman. She has a lifelong friend who's always competing. If Maria says she got a promotion, Her friend replies with something like, "That's great. I'm already saving up to buy a house." At first, Maria let it slide, but over time, she began to feel insecure, as if nothing she did was ever enough. Or think about Javier, a 42-year-old man, whose older brother always says, "You should be more realistic," every time he talks about his dream of opening a cafe. Both of them are allowing these relationships to quietly erode their confidence. Jung would tell us, it's not the other person's fault, it's your unconscious trying to get your attention. So, how can you tell if a relationship is damaging your self-esteem? Jung gives us a clue. Pay close attention to how you feel after interacting with someone. If you feel drained, anxious, or like you need to wear a mask, that's a sign. It's not that those people are bad, it's that something in that dynamic isn't aligned with who you truly are. And here's the key. Your self-esteem doesn't depend on changing others. It depends on deciding who deserves a place in your life and how you're going to protect your energy. Let's take a quick pause, breathe, and think of someone who makes you feel that way. Who comes to mind? Maybe it's your partner who never celebrates your achievements, or a friend who only calls when they need something. If you want, share it in the comments by saying, "This happens to me with," and how it makes you feel. Your stories not only connect us as a community, they help this message reach more people who might need it. And if this resonates with you, give it a like and share it with someone who could benefit from it. Together, we can help change lives. Let's go back to Carl Jung. He said, our relationships reflect our unconscious, including the shadow we mentioned earlier. If someone constantly irritates you, say a co-worker in LA who always cuts you off, it's not just about them. Jung would ask, what part of yourself are you projecting? Maybe it's your fear of not being heard, or your frustration with not setting boundaries. The good news is that once you recognize it, you can change it. Instead of blaming her, ask yourself, what do I need to feel safer? Maybe it's being clearer next time, or simply walking away from that kind of energy. Now let's talk about self-love, because for Jung, that's the root of real self-esteem. Picture Claudia, a 29-year-old woman. She's been dating someone for months, who treats her well sometimes, but never commits. Every time she tries to talk about it, he makes her feel like she's overreacting. Claudia stays because she thinks, this is better than being alone. But deep down, her self-worth is falling apart. Or think of Luis, a 37-year-old man, stuck in a job where he's constantly overlooked because he believes there's nothing better out there. Both are sacrificing their essence out of fear of being alone. Carl Jung would call that betraying your unconscious. Here's a practical tool: boundaries. Jung may not have used that exact word, but his idea of individuation, the process of becoming your true self, includes it. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's telling your unconscious, I matter. If Claudia tells her partner, I need clarity or I'll walk away, she's choosing peace. If Luis tells his boss, I can't take on more projects without support, he's claiming his dignity. Try this. The next time someone crosses a line, say something simple like, this doesn't feel good to me. I'm going to need some space. And then observe how you feel. Your self-esteem will thank you. Now let's go deeper. Toxic relationships. Carl Jung believed that sometimes the unconscious uses chaos to wake you up. Think about a couple like Carla and her boyfriend, who argue all the time. Every conversation turns into a fight, but she stays because she loves him. Or picture Pedro, a 45-year-old man whose business partner constantly makes decisions without consulting him. They're both stuck in patterns that scream, "Let go," but fear holds them back. Jung would say, those obstacles are messages. If something constantly drains you, it's not aligned with your path. So what do? You let go. That's not giving up. It's freeing yourself. When Carla broke up with her boyfriend, she cried for a week, but then felt a relief she didn't expect. She started writing poetry again, something she'd forgotten she loved. Pedro ended the partnership, and though it was tough, he now works alone and feels calmer. Letting go isn't easy, but Jung said that doing so creates space for what truly belongs in your life. And when you do that, your self-worth grows because you're telling yourself, I deserve better. Let's pause again. Imagine letting go of a relationship that weighs you down. What would you do with that free energy? Maybe you'd pick up an old hobby like painting, or just rest without feeling guilty. Leave a comment telling me what you'd do if you dared to let something go. And if this video is resonating with you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Let's keep growing together. Now, what happens when you surround yourself with people who truly uplift you? Jung spoke of synchronicity, those moments that seem like coincidences, but carry deeper meaning. When you align with your truth, the universe answers. Think about Carolina, a 31-year-old woman. She left behind a group of friends who constantly judged her, and just a few weeks later, she met a mentor who helped her launch her jewelry business. Or Daniel, a 39-year-old man who, after distancing himself from a toxic friend, started crossing paths with musicians who invited him to play. That's not luck, it's synchronicity. It happens when you choose relationships that honor who you are. Here's another insight. Your relationships don't just affect your self-esteem, they shape your dreams. Jung said that the people around you impact your psyche, your mind and soul as one. If you're close to someone who doubts you, like a mother telling her daughter, running a business isn't for you, those messages seep into your unconscious. But if you're surrounded by those who believe in you, like a friend saying, you've got this, your confidence skyrockets. So ask yourself, who is lifting me up? Who is holding me back? Let's take practical action. Make an inventory. Grab a sheet of paper and draw 2 columns, people who give me energy and people who drain it. Be honest. If someone's in the second column, you don't have to cut them off immediately, but begin to lower their influence. Say no to a plan or spend less time with them. Notice how you feel after a week. This is Carl Jung in action, aligning your life with what nourishes you. Before we wrap up, a final thought. Your self-worth isn't a gift others give you. It's a spark you ignite by choosing who gets to be close. If this is resonating, comment with one word: energy. And if you want more people to discover Jung's secret, share this video. In the next part, we'll explore how to take this transformation to the next level with clear steps to start living from your authenticity. If you're still here, it means you're ready to make the final leap on this journey with Carl Jung. And I'm thrilled we've come this far together. We just uncovered how your relationships shape your self-esteem, and how choosing the right people to surround yourself with can truly change everything. Now we're going to end strong by exploring what it really means to live from your true self. That deep place where your self-esteem doesn't just grow, it becomes unshakable. Jung left us a roadmap for this, and today I'm going to walk you through it with clear steps, real examples that'll touch your heart, and a message you won't forget. Let's start with something direct. Authenticity isn't a luxury, it's your right. Jung believed that the goal of life isn't to fit into what others expect of you, but to uncover who you truly are and live from that place. He called it individuation, the process of integrating all the parts of yourself, both light and shadow, so you become whole. And what does this have to do with self-esteem? Everything. When you live as someone you're not, your confidence collapses. But when you accept yourself as you are, no masks, you become unstoppable. Think about it. How many times have you changed something about yourself just to be accepted? Picture Lucia, a 27-year-old woman. She loves dancing salsa, but she stopped because her friends said she's too old for that now. Or think about Raul, a 44-year-old man who keeps his dream of writing a book to himself because his family thinks it's not a serious goal. Both of them are dimming their light out of fear of judgment, and their self-esteem feels it. Jung would say, that's not living, that's surviving. The real question is, what part of you are you hiding to please others? So here's the first practical step. Reconnect with what you love. Jung believed your unconscious speaks through what excites you. If something lights you up, painting, singing, even cooking, it's not random. It's your essence asking to come out. Try this. This week, spend 15 minutes doing something that fills you up. If you're like Lucia, dance in your living room, even alone. If you're like Raul, write a single page without judging yourself. Notice how you feel afterward. That little spark you feel? It's your self-esteem saying, thank you for seeing me. Let's pause, take a breath, and reflect. What lit you up before fear or shame got in the way? If you feel brave, share it in the comments. I'd love to know. Your story might just inspire someone else in this community. And if this video is sparking something inside you, hit like and share it with someone who needs this push. Together, we're building something powerful. Let's go back to Jung. He believed that authenticity not only connects you with yourself, it transforms your entire view of the world. When you start living from your truth, you begin to notice synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that feel like signs. Think about Anna, a 33-year-old woman. She walked away from a job she hated and started selling handmade crafts. Not long after, she met someone at a market who introduced her to a shop owner. Or take Jorge, a 38-year-old man who had ignored his love for photography for years. One day, he picked up a camera, and soon after, he was invited to exhibit his work. That's the universe responding to their courage. And yes, it can happen to you. But listen, this isn't about instant magic. Jung warned that the journey to authenticity includes shadows. Letting go of old things, a relationship, a job, a belief, can really hurt. Think of Carla, a 40-year-old woman who ended a long-time friendship because it always made her feel small. At first, she felt lonely, but later, she began attracting people who truly valued her. Or Esteban, a 35-year-old man who left a secure job to follow his dream of becoming a chef. He had some tough months, but now he owns a food truck. Carl Jung would say, chaos is the cost of growth, but the peace that follows makes it all worth it. So how do you face that chaos? With reflection. Jung used a method called active imagination, basically, having a dialogue with your unconscious mind. Here's a tool. Grab a notebook and write a question like, what's holding me back? Then let your hand answer without overthinking. Don't judge it. Read it, then ask yourself, what can I do with this? I tried this once when I was doubting a major life change. I wrote down, I'm afraid I'm not enough. Seeing it in front of me, I chose to move forward anyway, and my self-esteem grew from facing that fear. Let's go deeper. Your dreams. Jung believed the unconscious pulls you toward your purpose, even when the world tries to push you away. Think of Sophia, a 29-year-old woman who wanted to be a designer, but her family kept saying, "Study something practical." She became an accountant and felt empty. One day, after a vivid dream where she was designing clothes, she decided to try. Now she has a small brand and says, "I've never loved myself this much." Or Daniel, a 41-year-old man who left his office job to teach surfing, something he had loved since youth. His confidence didn't just grow, it became his power. Let's pause. What dream have you been hiding? Maybe you wanted to start a business, travel, or learn something new. Leave it in the comments. Let's keep exploring how to live fully. Now let's talk about emotional chaos, because Jung believed that's where your biggest transformation happens. Have you ever felt fine one day, and the next, everything feels overwhelming? Picture Anna, a 36-year-old woman. She used to fight a lot with her partner and felt drained. One day, instead of reacting, she sat down and wrote out what she felt. "I'm scared he doesn't love me." That sentence pushed her to speak honestly. Not everything got fixed, but being real brought her peace. Or think of Juan, a 43-year-old man who felt like a failure after losing his job. He took time to reflect and realized it was a chance to start something of his own. Chaos isn't the end, it's the beginning. Here's one more thing you can do. Embrace the mess. Next time you feel lost, don't run away. Sit for 5 minutes and ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me? Maybe an argument shows you need boundaries. Maybe disappointment shows you're looking in the wrong place. Jung said, "There's no awakening without pain." But that pain leads you to your true self, and with it, your self-worth becomes rock solid. Let's close with something powerful. The world needs your light. Jung believed that when you live from your truth, you not only transform, you inspire. Maybe a friend started painting after seeing you pick up a hobby, or a colleague switched careers because you dared to do it. Your authenticity is contagious. So, why not start today? Choose one small thing. Say no to what drains you, or do something you love without guilt. Watch your confidence grow. Before we finish, a reflection. What is your unconscious asking of you today? Maybe it's letting go of guilt, chasing a dream, or simply loving yourself more. If you'd like, share it in the comments with "Today I Choose." Thank you for staying until the end of this journey. If this video brought you clarity, like it and share it with someone who needs to hear this. This message isn't just for you. It's for every soul seeking something real. Jung reminded us, what the answers aren't outside, they live within. Your worth isn't measured by applause, but by how deeply you listen to yourself. In these 3 parts, we explored how embracing your shadow, choosing uplifting relationships, and living authentically can transform your life, effortlessly and from within. So today, I invite you to act, release what holds you back, to hug what ignites your soul, and watch how life responds. Take just a moment. Imagine your life if you allowed yourself to be 100% you. What would shift? That's your true power, and it's been waiting patiently for you. If this resonated with you, leave a comment sharing your takeaway. Subscribe, turn on the notifications, and share this with someone ready for change. Together, we're creating a community of brave, authentic souls, ready to shine. Change starts with you. See you in the next video.